Unafraid Show daily live college football apostles. It's your boy George Wrighster. That's that man, Ralph Amsden, right there. And thank you guys for joining us again. Today's show is hot and heavy. Ralph, I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of Ralph's head, but there is steam coming off of his head because the ASU allegations with Antonio Pierce and all sorts of guys that I played with in the NFL and against. Oh man, this is crazy. Greg Sankey, he makes comments about the Super Team League, and this is exactly why we need a college football commissioner, is because of what Greg Sankey said. Lincoln Riley talks about eligibility and how many years that players should have, being that we have all sorts of guys talking about sitting out, redshirting, and all of this. And I think he makes sense. The new Super Team League. And how about feud? I love when people in the media start feuding because this is the new beef. You know, we used to have rap beefs. We just had Kendrick, Drake, but now it is media members going at each other. Oh, and this time it's Nicole Auerbach and Brett McMurphy. Two people, I love their work, but we are here for all the drama. And the Pac-12, new basketball league with Gonzaga and Grand Canyon University and maybe Memphis. And of course, we have to talk about which new undefeateds are legit. And we got games this weekend. This is a jam-packed show. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend, and share. Share the show. We're going to pause for 1 second so you can go down, give it a thumbs up, or go over to the YouTube channel, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. If you're listening to it on the podcast, leave a review, leave a rating. All of these things, they help the show grow because this is the greatest college football show that you will ever watch. Are you ready to go, Ralph?
I'm ready.
He's mad. We're going to get to the ASU thing in a minute. But I wanted to start with Greg Sankey's comments because Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, he was asked about, to go back to last week's show just a little bit, the Big Ten and the SEC were having a meeting and having a powwow and they didn't invite the Big Ten. I'm sorry, they didn't invite the ACC, didn't invite the Big 12 because this is the big dogs talking. And what they decided, what the news that came out of that is that, with this new 14-team playoff, we want guaranteed 4 spots for the Big Ten and for the SEC. That's what we want. And Greg Sankey was also talking about the idea of a college football commissioner. And he said, quote, I've studied it a little bit, and I come back to I don't want to dumb down the Southeastern Conference to be part of some super league notion with 70 teams that people speculate what would happen. They want to be us, and that's on them to figure it out, not on me to bring myself back down to earth. Ooh, he was like, and so I got to unpack, and we got to unpack this statement, Ralph, because this led me down. I was like, this is exactly why we need a commissioner in college football. What Greg Sankey said, it's the problem. When we complain about the SEC and 8 conference games, this is the reason why. Because he knows it is a distinct advantage. And we are college football fans. We love college football. But a commissioner is tasked with doing what's best for college football. Each individual school, they are mercenaries and that are part of a conference. So each school is trying to do something. It's crabs in a bucket to keep everybody else down and keep themselves up. Each conference, the same thing. Hold the other conferences down while you stay up. But in reality, is that what's best for college football? No. Is it best for college football that Vandy never, ever, ever has a chance to win the SEC? Is it better that Rutgers won't win the Big Ten? No. What's better for college football is when you have competition. It's no different in business. It is no different in getting better just in general in athletics. Competition matters, and he just exposed the fact that the SEC is trying to stay on top and that it is not what's best for college football. In fact, it's not even best for the SEC. It's best for Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and any other team with a historical situation. Is not best for Missouri, not best for Vandy, not best for pretty much anybody except for the elites. And we can't have that because the NFL model is the right model.
Yeah, I when I was typing up the outline to send to you, I kept typing Greg Sankey, and my autocorrect kept changing it to Snakey, and then I was like, oh, well, this is appropriate. Here's who Greg Sankey thinks he is. Greg Sankey thinks that he is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
What do you
That's what
mean?
he thinks. In 1967, the NCAA banned dunking
Yeah, because of Kareem.
because one dude, yeah, because of one dude, right? And that rule stayed in place for 9 years. Now, what happened because of that is Lou Alcindor at the time, then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, developed the skyhook and was the NBA scoring champion for like 50 years. That's the evolution that came out of that. But he thinks he's Kareem, but the truth of the matter is he doesn't want to have to play by the same rules as everybody else because he's afraid.
Yep.
This is actually fear. Greg Sankey's just a scared little boy. Because if he had to have 9 conference games, he calls that dumbing the SEC down. The SEC teams playing each other is dumbing the SEC down.
Yes,
Like,
because
it's not.
Ralph, because that would mean, and we've done a whole study on this, is that playing 8 conference games versus playing 9 conference games is a difference of a half of loss more per team. So you have an average of 4 losses per team with 8 conference games that have to be spread out throughout the conference however it happens. Some people are going to go undefeated, some are going to go lose all their conference games, and everybody in between. It is 4.5 losses per team. So in a 16 team league, that is an additional 8 losses that have to be spread out. And that's the difference in bowl eligibility for a couple of teams. That's the difference between college football playoff spots. That's the difference. And he knows that. And people have been fooled into believing that the conference, which has been great at the top, like I don't want to sound like that person is like, oh, the SEC is overrated. No, the idea that the SEC is so great from top to bottom. No, they've just had the very best team in college football more than other people have.
And they are if you know, let's say that the you just played by NBA rules here. The Western Conference is better than the Eastern Conference, but it doesn't have it isn't what you think it is, right? Like you don't there isn't like a Western Conference commissioner that gets to take credit for the fact that like
Exactly.
so many Eastern Conference teams have been mired in mediocrity, and so many Eastern Conference cities aren't where basketball players want to be. That it has nothing to do with anything. Like the SEC has a natural advantage in that it has access, and now especially with the inclusion of Texas and Texas A&M, it has access to Florida, it has access to Georgia, it has access to Alabama, it has access to Texas and Tennessee and North Carolina.
Louisiana.
It's got all of these, yeah, Louisiana, all these places where high school football is incredible, where the athletes are incredible. Like good for you that you have all that. But trying to take credit that it was like your leadership or something like that, the whole thing of like bring me back down to earth, like I'm the superstar. I'm the transcendent figure of all this. Greg, I got to tell you something, buddy. They don't need you at all to be the best in football. You didn't help Alabama win. You're not helping anybody win these big games. You're not the one playing on the field. You have set up a system where it's a little bit easier for the rich to stay rich. That's it. And it not to be like, it's not political, like we need to get billionaires to pay their fair share. It's not like that at all. It's just that if we're going to call college football, there should be some standard rules. And instead, college football is starting to look more like professional boxing, where you've got like a WBO title and then a different title
Mm,
and then all of these different weight classes. Meanwhile, the UFC eclipses boxing in popularity because it's got a unifying body
yep.
and they
And
just
you
run
can
their
make
best out
fights that
against each
people
other.
want to see. And Ralph, that is a great example comparing it to boxing, dude.
You create opportunities for corruption. You create opportunities for guys like Greg Sankey to get in there and be the Bob Arum and say, no, it's only going to happen the way that I want it to happen. It reminds me, and I know we're on opposite sides of this, but it reminds me of Floyd Mayweather spending 6 years saying, no, I want three extra things if I'm going to fight Manny Pacquiao. I want three extra things that aren't in the rules if I'm going to do this. A unifying body would not have let Floyd Mayweather do that, or
Oh,
they
do
would
you
have
think
made
that
Manny
it
Pacquiao.
was if it was Dana White, they would have fought a long time ago. And if it was a drug testing issue or whatever it was, would have been solved and they would have fought.
Yeah, no, Dana White would have had his goons hold you down so he could cut you, take your blood himself. Like that, and that's what. And so I understand that Greg Sankey probably thought that he felt like he probably felt like Suge Knight when that came out of his mouth. He's probably feeling himself, but he comes off like a scared little boy. He really does. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is that you have your teams playing Mercer and Tennessee Tech and the Citadel and Chattanooga in November. That
I, and that's what I'm saying, Ralph, is that that's not what's best for college football. We only get 12 opportunities to watch our teams play, to watch college football, guaranteed. And why on earth? And I do understand the concept of buy games, and we support that. But there should not be more than two of them.
and they shouldn't come in November.
Correct. Because them coming so late in the season messes up the rankings and the evaluation process of teams. So,
Well, and the FCS teams that have to go to the playoffs, but first they got to worry about trying to block Walter Nolan. Like, come on, man.
yeah. No, it's a bad setup. It's a bad deal, and this needs to be fixed. And this is exactly why college football needs a commissioner. They need somebody in charge, and maybe I'm that person at some point in time, because what I'm and this is where the NFL gets it right. And I know that college football fans, and honestly, I would hate it too if Oregon has to go through these cycles of being really good, and then we missed on a couple recruiting classes, and now we suck again. And I'm not. The NFL model is built where, okay, the Baltimore Ravens, they if Lamar Jackson starts and finishes a season, they go to the playoffs. Same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not the same thing for Joe Burrow and the and the Bengals. It's not the same for other teams where they have these fluctuations. The Giants and the Seahawks made the playoffs a couple of years ago. The Giants have been bad since. And that's actually better for the sport to have more competition and to have like what you have in baseball, where the have nots, like the Tigers just won a series in baseball after being sellers at the trade deadline. The Kansas City Royals are in the playoffs. They're like, these are things that are actually better for the sport overall. Um, but speaking of better for overall for the sport, what did you think about Lincoln Riley's comments that five, that in terms of the eligibility, that not players where there is the players get 6 years to play five, or that he said that you should get 5 years to play college football, period. You can you can play as much as you want, as little as you want, whatever, trying to worry about red shirt rules and all of that stuff. I actually loved it. I loved what Lincoln Riley had to say right there, because I thought it was smart. Like, why are we worried about red shirts and all of this stuff? Just give them a standard time to play. If you get injured like Cam McCormick and we got to grant you extra years and all of that, okay, cool. But It should be just a standard, you know, 5 years to play five. That's it. If you play every single game as a freshman, so what? Because as a team, why should the team have to try to manage? Like, for instance, Oregon was playing UCLA this weekend. Dante Moore played at UCLA. So at the end of the game, they brought Novosad in at quarterback instead of Dante Moore. And people wondered why, being that Dante Moore is the second string quarterback. It's because Dante Moore has already played in one game. So he has 3 more games that he can play in and still preserve his red shirt. So if something happens to Dylan Gabriel and he's got to miss a game or two, you don't want 10 snaps in meaningless football to then burn his red shirt and turn him into a sophomore, and then he'll be a junior next year, as opposed to potentially getting him for 3 years. So I think that Lincoln Riley is 100% right.
Yeah, I'll read the quote. He said, Lincoln Riley said, I think guys should have 5 years, do whatever you want, play as much or as little as you want. And the only way you get an extra one is if you have 2 season-ending injuries and miss the whole season. I love the
That
first
part,
part of it. I love 5 years,
yeah.
but like you can't have a season-ending injury and miss the whole season. A season-ending injury implies that you played part of the season and
Oh
then
yeah,
got hurt.
yeah.
So if you get hurt in game 2, you can miss the majority of a season. So I don't know. What do you think about this? 50 games, 50 games, or age 24.
See, I'm not gonna age people out only because like
Well, you have like
birthday.
military exceptions,
Yeah,
missionary exceptions.
yeah. Um,
But if you have people who like so like Jaden Rashada, right? He turned 20 his true freshman year.
yeah,
That would still give him 4 or 5 years. I guess the 5 years thing does make sense, but I almost wonder if you put a game limit on it, right? Like so because if somebody comes in and they make a 15 game run playing as a true freshman to the Natty and then they turn around and do it again, they use 30 games in their first
yeah,
two
yeah.
years.
Now you got 20 games left. See, I okay. So I learned this when I was going through custody situations, right? Where we went to family court and all of this, is that number one, the thing that makes it easier is when both parties say, let's do what's best for the actual kids and stop getting in our own
Right.
way. So that's the first thing. But the second most important thing is, and here's the mistake that we made the first time, is we made all of these intricate details. Okay, what happens if he or she is late 15 minutes picking up the kids, then you lose your day or you do this, and you create all of these intricate rules that then once you get into actual application in real life, now you got to put patches on all these things because you realize that you can't actually fulfill all of these things. Because what happens if you get a flat tire? What happens if the freeway is blocked? What happens if a flight's
Yeah.
late? What happens if school is out on this day but then not on this day? And what happens if there's a fire alarm or an earthquake? You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
once you make the rules so tight, you cause more room um for exceptions. And I think that you have to make common sense rules and have a figure in charge that's like, okay, yes, I know that this doesn't, like, that we need to be more spirit of the law and create letters of the law, but then create some spirit around it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you were just to say 5 years with if you get an injury waiver, you can have a sixth.
Yep.
If you were to do something like that, that would really simplify it. I'm going to throw another one out there for you, and I think this one might be unenforceable or create lawsuits or something like that. But I believe it's a kill two birds with one stone thing. If you are a running back,
Mm.
you can come out after 2 years. What do you think of that?
I'm not
We
mad at
already
it.
have an issue. It is the position that ages out the soonest.
Yes. Well, that's not a NCAA rule. That's an NFL rule. So the NFL says that you're not draft eligible until after 3 years. Well, sorry. Well, yes, 3 years removed from your high school graduating class. So, so technically, a kid who goes on his Mormon mission, I think, is eligible. Like if he goes for 2 years, I think he's eligible after his freshman year because you're 3 years removed from your high school graduating class. Like you don't actually have to play 3 years of college football. My understanding of the rule is that it's 3 years removed from your high school graduating class, and that's
Okay,
how.
because I remember. Do you remember Eric Swan?
Yes, and then there was the Okoye kid too, who got drafted at like
Yeah, McCoy
19.
started. Yeah, because he started college at 15.
Yeah,
So that just goes to show you the NFL rule is not based on age, because Ryan Williams could be drafted out of Alabama at like 19 years old technically. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just that's the so the 5 years thing I think is a good idea, but also if they could come to some agreement, because it's the running back position has had all these issues at the NFL level regarding compensation. Well, if you gave them an extra year to get compensated, I don't know how the NCAA would feel about that. I don't even know if they have any ability to block it. I don't think they would. But that's another change that I would like to see, is that if somebody has 2 good years in college football as a running back, then they can go. Um, but I don't know. Maybe that creates more issues. Maybe I'm just trying to muddy it up. I'm like pork, trying to get something into the bill to get passed that I feel
you're
passionately
like
about.
North Carolina. You are trying to block trans athletes, and then you end up stopping everybody's NIL money. Good job, Ralph.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good job,
Hey, if
dude.
you're curious about that one, definitely go to Unafraid Show. We have a video on that.
Yeah. Um, and because I know people are like, wait, what? Yes, yes. Just search North Carolina on Unafraid Show. All right. So Nicole Auerbach put out a tweet, and this was about this was a press release from a group called the Sports College Sports Tomorrow that proposed the formation of a college student football league, which would be the top 72 FBS teams, and that they would be in it. So, and essentially, this is a league where it's a super conference, and this is what Greg Sankey was against. Now, on its face, I love it. And honestly, it's actually better for the individual schools, because when you have teams trying to get in conferences, talking about partial shares, full shares, all of this stuff. The reason why the NFL makes so much money and there's money available for everybody, which remember, all these schools be like, well, Alabama has money, Oregon has money, uh, Oregon State doesn't have the money. There are, I mean, in comparison to themselves, but Oregon State has more money than UC Davis, or than all these schools. So imagine this. Imagine a world where the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, Notre Dame, and the other independents, that when they go to Fox, ESPN, CBS, every other CW, every other network, NBC, and they say, listen, we have 10 years of media rights available. Okay, cool. If they negotiated those rights together, they would get more money. As much money as the SEC and the Big Ten are getting now, it would be more per team if they negotiated it together. Because then you can do a whole, imagine this, a red zone for college football. Oh my God, where you can just buy all of the games together and then that sends the revenue up further. Oh, oh my God. And they can control all the commercials, the advertisement. And now you can sell advertisements to people across all the games. So now you're going to be able to charge advertise more for advertising. Ralph, this is the part that makes no sense. This is where it is crabs in a bucket. This is actually a super team, a super conference is actually better for everybody, but it's not better for the elites.
Which is why I guess it explains why there's University of Tennessee's fingerprints all over this. I'm not, I'm not trying to insult University of Tennessee, but they're like what, the fifth best SEC team over the last 20, 30 years. They got their
Yeah,
1998 title. But if you look at the people that are listed as part of this, you've got D and Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam is the he is the owner of the Cleveland Browns.
great
He is a
guy.
crook. He's actually
Great guy.
scamming America's truckers, trying to pay bribes to facilitate the sale of Pilot to Berkshire Hathaway. A long list of him just being a crummy dude. I hope he has to pay out every penny of that contract he gave to the last quarterback he signed. But he's also part owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, and guess who else is listed as a founding member of the College Student Athlete League? Mark Lazary, another co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. There are, I think there are like 12 people that are listed that are part of this. Another one of them is Danny White, the athletic director for University of
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's some interesting names on here, uh, and it's an interesting idea. Now, would I do anything involving involving Jimmy Haslam?
No.
That that's too well. It's twofold. It's twofold because what do you always say? Not everything's for sale. Everything just ain't on sale.
Yes.
Is that your that's your
Yes.
saying, right?
That's exactly it.
So I compared to Jimmy Haslam, I'm as broke gets. I'm living in the slums of Mumbai compared to Jimmy Haslam. I'm sure with one phone call he could convince me to endorse this league. I'll become the voice of the league.
Ralph,
So let's
Ralph, if you get a $2 million check, are you gonna be all in on this league?
I will. Oh my gosh, I'll get Grant Hill's face tattooed over my face. Oh my gosh, no, it would. But it is a decent idea. It is a decent idea.
Oh, there
Um,
and we pride ourselves on being honesty brokers and all of that stuff. But in being an honesty broker, you do have to admit that, like, all right, there, like you said, everything is not for sale. Well, everything's not on sale. Well, everything is for sale, but everything's not on sale. So that there is like that this is not something that's going to hurt people. So there is a price where Unafraid Show could get behind this idea. But
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, and you know me. I think you can speak for me on this. If there's anybody you know who doesn't care about money,
it's
it's
you.
probably me.
Yes.
However, people keep asking me for this money that I don't care about for my kids' saxophone lessons, for football equipment. Uh, so this thing I don't care about, people keep asking me for. I'm starting to realize that there might be a reason that other people do care about this thing. So at the moment, I am not on sale. But yeah, I'm sure I'm sure that if I saw something with a bunch of zeros behind it, I might get a little hypnotized. But
Ex-
it's not a bad idea. Anything that facilitates being able to sign student athletes into enforceable contracts where they get to share in the revenue is something I'm going to be more interested in than the current structure.
yep.
It just happens to be that when I see Jimmy Haslam's name on something, I'm like,
Gives you the ick.
okay, hide the valuables because he's leaving here with something. So it makes me wonder what he thinks he can get out of it. But I mean, this man is like 65, 70 years old. Like maybe he actually does care about the health, or maybe it's just all about University of
What?
Tennessee, because University of Tennessee might believe that all other things being equal, that they would just dominate everything. And maybe they're right if you look at their recruiting lately. But I just I don't know. It is a very, very interesting idea. Would you support this model over the current NCAA?
Yes, yes. Pretty much anything over uh anything that's going to create a single league. I am in it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But it was Nicole Auerbach who I first saw that tweeted that out. But her and Brett McMurphy have been in a fight this week, and this is over technicalities. This is a journalist fight because Brett McMurphy tweeted that Gonzaga was going to be joined. I think he tweeted it on September 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, that Gonzaga was going to be joining the Pac-12. And everybody came out of the woodwork. Oh, they're not joining the Pac-12. Erroneous report. Oh, look at this dummy and this idiot. I mean, it was pretty much to that extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was bad.
Yes.
And
Yeah, he
then
got
all
everyone piled on. John Rothstein, Canzano, uh, Nicole Auerbach. They all jumped on him, and Nicole has a previous beef with him over the Mel
I didn't
Tucker
know that.
firing.
Over the what?
Yeah, so he said Mel Tucker's going to get fired, and she was like, "Well, he's not fired yet." So it was the exact same situation.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and
and
oh yes, yeah, because he did tweet. Oh, wait, is Mel Tucker fired yet? because
and
because so and the reason why that's a technicality is because in a lot of these states, the way the coaches contracts are set up is that you can't immediately fire them even if they were caught on tape punching his wife or pushing a baby down the steps or anything. You can't fire him immediately. You have to essentially put them on leave. The same thing is true in some police departments and other sectors of the world too, where you can't fire them immediately even though everybody and their mama knows that you're going to fire them. There's a required cooling off period or whatever it's called in certain states where you have to put them on leave. And then once that 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever the requirement is fulfilled, then they terminate the person. So, and I don't know what the mechanism, I mean, the reason for that is, but that's the reason why it actually happens. But this beef between the two of them over technicalities is interesting because she's like, well, the whole point of this is, were you right at the time? And I would say that Brett was right at the time. It just wasn't finalized. And like, have you guys ever noticed that we get these interesting that we get these very interesting tweets from like Feldman, who when somebody is taking a job, he tweets, "Oh, it looks like Oregon is considering hiring Dan Lanning," and then an hour later, Oregon's hiring Dan Lanning. Like, so he words it very interesting, but he won't tweet it until it's done, essentially.
yeah, or like Woj would be like, "It looks like the 76ers have zeroed in on Ben Simmons,"
Yeah.
or something like that, like
Yes.
zeroed in on, but they didn't make the selection, right?
Correct. So I like the people who say something. That's the reason why I like Brett McMurphy. Think he does a great job, and and he's not afraid to tackle them, tackle people. That's why I like Pete Thamel because he will go after even people, Ralph, that he has to get breaking news from.
Yeah, and what this feels like to me is it feels like religion, right? It feels like Protestants arguing with other Protestants, and the difference between Baptist and Methodist. This is the church of journalism, and technically, Nicole Auerbach is correct. Like, you don't report something has happened until it has happened. But the problem is that's not what Brett McMurphy did in this instance. He said Gonzaga is leaving, which is like a future tense thing. And it really felt like she was probably still mad about the Mel Tucker thing, and brought it up again. They were going back and forth, but it wasn't just her that went in on this whole Gonzaga thing. And the thing that made it really funny is Nicole Auerbach took a shot at Brett McMurphy, said, "Why don't you go back to wishing coaches happy birthday?" Right? Like, why don't you go back to sucking up to get your scoops? The funny thing is, one of the people that went after Brett McMurphy for filing this report that Gonzaga was going to the Pac-12 was John Rothstein, and John Rothstein's emails all got leaked, and his texts all got leaked, and he wishes every coach in America happy birthday to stay in constant communication with them for scoops. So even the people who were on Nicole Auerbach's side of this practice some of the things that she talked about. I'm sure she's
Well,
friendly
first of
with some of
all,
her sources.
yes. Do you realize how crazy that is and how diabolical it is, Ralph? If I only text you when I need something or when I want something, how are you going to react after the first couple of times?
I'm gonna feel like a lady of the night.
Yes. So you can't just have people feel like you just, hey, bend over. And no, like, hey, I'm here today. No, man, there's a certain element of it's not sucking up. It's just, oh, okay, cool. You have to create moments of interactions with people that aren't when you need something.
Yeah, it feels what's crazy is it kind of feels like it mirrors, and I'm sure you've had some of these conversations in your marriage when it's like, hey, uh, you know, your wife's like, hey, garbage disposal, and you're like, yeah, I'm on it. Now, you are going to be on it, but there's not a timetable there.
Correct.
You're just going to be
Yes.
on it. You know that you're going to get to it. And when she asks again in 3 weeks and you say, I'm on it, she can be like, no, you're not. Is it done? So like, yeah,
Yeah.
technically she's right, but I'm on it. It's happening.
Yes.
It's going to happen. I'm going to get to it. I'm sure that in Brett McMurphy's desire to be first on this information, breaking this news that he believed would happen, you could say, yeah, but it's not official. So can you actually say it? And I wonder if he had changed one or two words to say like Gonzaga's planning on leaving
Yeah.
or whatever. But the interesting thing is how this is going to affect the weird new version of the Pac-12, which is still going to have football, but seems to really be gearing itself toward basketball.
Yeah, so with the addition of Gonzaga, the possible addition of Grand Canyon and Memphis, because the reports are now that the teams that said they were staying in the American or the Mountain West or whoever, that they are considering, that they're reconsidering. And remember, the Memphis AD was like, "Yo, the finances didn't make sense," but now they trying to sweeten the deal. And yeah, so I do believe that Memphis is getting out of the American because they wanted out of the American into the ACC or the Big 12. They didn't like that they got snubbed when the Big 12 expansion happened because that's where they really wanted to go. A basketball league, the best basketball league in the country, and you would be in a good spot in football. Your revenues would go up. They wanted that and they didn't get it. And they're trying to figure out if the Pac 12 is their next stepping stone to get to where they really want to be.
And the Pac-12 needs what? One more football school
Yep, they
to
need one more
remain
football
a
school.
conference?
Yeah,
They
well,
have 2 years
one
to
more
do it.
general member. One, so it can't be football only. It's got to be another general member in all sports. Well, obviously not all sports, but there's a certain amount of sports that you have to because all schools don't have all sports. So yeah,
The new Pac-12 feels to me like uh I don't know. I went to see Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it was like one original member of like an 11-person band. That's kind of what it feels like to me, or it feels
yeah.
like the new Marvel Avengers, where you're like, wait a minute, Captain America's black now, and he's the Falcon, and Robert Downey Jr. is a different character,
Yeah,
and he's
it's
not
two
Iron Man.
character.
Like,
Yeah, it's weird.
yeah, that's what the new Pac-12 feels like. But it will be a viable basketball league if they can If they
Yeah.
can get
I just
Gonzaga,
don't know if
GCU,
they're
and
going to
Memphis,
get the Power Five status without snatching up some of that ACC talent when the ACC breaks up. If they're going to get the what they really want. Um, but now the thing, oh, Ralph, I can see the steam has cooled from your head a little bit because we have not talked about it, and we got all these other directions you had started to light up in your face, but now we got to get to the nitty gritty, buddy. And now I can see your face is starting to turn red, and it is because Arizona State new violations, which we knew about already, have been revealed. And people called us crazy. They were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. This, and this. And all of that. Yeah, it should be a big deal.
do you want to explain to the listening audience who might be new to College Football Apostles what our particular history is with this story?
So I said, so we were on the show and we tweeted out that I tweeted out that there was going to be bombshell allegations. I put the mushroom cloud, and it would have been if there were like a commissioner. However, the way that this has breadcrumbed out over the years, because we have now found out that one of the investigators passed away, so that put a reset on the investigation. And the
We're
school,
40 months out. We're 40
yes,
months out from your tweet.
damn, that was 3 years ago. three
Three,
years,
almost three and a
four
half
months ago.
years ago. Yeah.
So and now today we get the show cause violation for 8 year show cause for Antonio Pierce, who I played with the Giants, where I had a cup of coffee up there, known him for a while. Um, oh my gosh, the wide receiver coach who he played at Arizona State.
Derek Hagan.
Yeah, Derek Hagan,
Yeah.
who I know
Good dude.
well. What did he get, a 10 year show cause?
10 years. Yeah.
And at what did Adam Brenneman get, or is he not in there?
Well, he's not listed anywhere in the report, so you can assume what that means.
And remember, Adam Brenneman, is Prentice Gill in there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So wait. So out of the coaches that Arizona State actually fired, the only one that's not in the report is Adam Brenneman.
Someone who happens to be a very good storyteller in his current profession. Yes.
Oh, so Adam Brenneman went. So he got immunity. That's what I'm not subject. This is clear. He went in there, and granted, I'm not mad at him because Adam Brenneman's career is blossoming, and he was like, this appears to be a guy like that. And I have to phrase this in a way that doesn't make things just so obvious, but there is a, let's just say it's obvious that there's a reason why he's not named in there when he clearly participated in things that happened. I mean, this is just a natural assumption, right?
Yeah, and I will say this too, for context. For context, you won't see me beating up on Adam Brenneman, and here's
No.
why. He was the same age Cam Rising is now when all this is going down.
Yeah. And he was, and when you have somebody, and remember, we talked about this about Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce is not cut out to be a college coach. Is he cut out
No
to be an
way, dude.
NFL? Like the NFL, because you don't have these sorts of rules and recruiting violations and all of this stuff, because he's a by any means necessary, I got to do what I got to do kind of guy. That's suited for the NFL and the professional leagues. Um, so he's not suited for college football, and I would say that to his face, considering that there are so many rules and intricate things surrounding it. That just ain't the place for him. He should be in the NFL, which is where he is. And but when he was, the way that he was in power in Arizona State and the way that they were forcing things in and forcing people to do things that they knew were going to could come back and bite them in the ass or put their careers in jeopardy. And it was okay because college football coaching is one of the hardest professions to break into, period. So when you get your foot in the door, you can't just be like, no, because if you get fired as a GA or a quality control coach, how you gonna get another job?
You got no reference.
Yeah, none. If that's
Reference.
your first job, that's gonna be your only job if you get fired.
And you could hate the person you work for. And there's a current position coach at University of Arizona who worked at Arizona State. He's got a kid in the NFL. He worked at Arizona State for a year. He hated Todd Graham so much. Hated that man. Hated him. And still had to go out to all these high schools and tell kids, you got to come play for Todd Graham. That's the spot to be. Because that's the nature of the job. That's the nature of the job. But what was very interesting in this case is Herm Edwards gave Antonio Pierce his shot, right? Made him a position coach, and within I'm imagining this happened pretty quickly. Antonio Pierce noticed that Herm Edwards has literally no idea what he's doing, no idea, like Mr. Magoo style, no clue, completely clueless, and it does not upset me that Antonio Pierce took the wheel because someone's got to take the wheel. You have to in that situation. You have to.
Yeah.
So I don't blame Antonio Pierce for that. But Antonio Pierce fired a bunch of Arizona State assistants, one of which, Charlie Fisher, was a head coach at a college program, stepped down to come be Herm Edwards' wide receivers coach, coached back-to-back first rounders in N'Keal Harry and Brandon Ayuk, and then they fired him to bring in Prentice Gill because Antonio Pierce realized if I give a bunch of people their very first gig, they will have to be loyal to me.
Yep.
So a 25-year-old Chris Hawkins, a 25-year-old Adam Brenneman, Prentice Gill,
What did Hawkins get? Because
Hawkins
his
talked.
dad runs Ground Zero, which is a big time 7-on-7 program.
Hawkins talked, and I think he's his is still 2028, so it's a 4-year deal. Prentice Gill talked, and one of the things that they mentioned is that Antonio Pierce told them, if you get caught doing any of this, it's cool. I'm rich. I'll take the fall. I don't need this job anyway. But then when it actually all went down and somebody sent a dossier to the NCAA, which is how we found out about it, we broke the news right before Pete Thamel, and that was a mess, and I don't want to relive that. But when that all happened, they all lost their jobs, and he stayed on for another year with his mouth shut and let all them take the hit. So he did not. And what's even crazier about this, and you can read it, it's 67 pages. They brought in like 35 recruits during COVID dead periods, took them to the gun range, took them bowling, partied with them, took Jaden Daniels' mom and parents of a recruit to a strip club, made one of the the recruiting staffers drive them there and be the designated driver, flew to Florida and visited with some kids and paid for stuff, got one of the assistant equipment managers to give free stuff to everybody, unbeknownst to the equipment manager at the time. That person got a heavy show cause. Derek Hagan refused to testify on behalf. He got a longer show cause than Antonio Pierce did. He got 10 years. Zach Hill got hit with one. He ended up having to go to the high school level. You know Zach Hill. He's with the Seahawks now. Antonio Pierce is obviously head coach of the Raiders. Herm Edwards is on ESPN, where Pete Thamel also works, who broke this story. It seems like everybody made out fine except for those assistants who were brought in to do Antonio Pierce's bidding. And then the funniest part about this is in the dossier, Herm Edwards was like, yes, I met with recruits during COVID. I only did it to talk to them about the dangers of COVID. Okay. And it reminds me of that line from The Simpsons of like, I was only in there to get directions on how to get away from there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's super, super messy. It has me pretty pissed off at Antonio Pierce that like, yes, it's obvious you had to take the wheel because Herm Edwards had no idea what he was doing, but you should have some loyalty to the man that gave you a shot, and you ruined his reputation Not that he deserved his reputation, he didn't. But you ruined his reputation and you messed over a lot of young people trying to break in. And you're not going to see any consequences for it. And that's extraordinarily unfortunate when you look at how the justice of this situation was doled out. The penalties for Arizona State, I'm not bitter or mad about, I promise. When you get
Yeah.
caught, you get caught. It is what it is. I'm mad that he was so bad at cheating, so ridiculously brazen about it that there's no way he would have not gotten caught.
Oh yeah. And okay, so so Chris Cartman from was it the rivals no the 247 Arizona State, he tweeted about it, site, he tweeted about it, and somebody responded, yo, makes you wonder what the elite schools are doing and don't get caught. That's one way to recruit, taking parents to a strip club. Class act. No wonder he got the good players. the
Well, so in this DOS in the breakdown, I guess they did get a sit down with Antonio Pierce, and a lot of the stuff he got in trouble for was lying in these interviews because they already had testimony from other people. But one of the things he said is like, "Well, everybody was doing it, so I figured why not?" And it's like, but you don't know, you don't know that for sure. And so when this broke, the funny thing about it was like David Shaw knew about it, Mario Cristobal knew about it, Kyle
yes,
Whittingham knew
yes,
about it.
because I
Like there were all
talked,
these coaches
so
who knew.
I talked to Mario Cristobal the day that I tweeted that, right? Talked to him that day, and he was like, we all knew, like we all knew
Yeah.
what was going on, that what Arizona State was doing during COVID. They knew, and but the coaches aren't gonna dime each other out. They're just like, okay, I see you. So, so if I violate something, I double dog dare you to say. I double dog dare you to say something.
What's interesting is not Adam Brenneman's not the only name that's missing from this, but Dave Christensen, who
Okay, what was Dave
who
Christensen?
Dave Christensen was the offensive line coach, former head coach at Wyoming, former OC at Missouri, like one of the originators of the spread. He was the O line coach at Arizona State, and he had Kevin Mawai working under him. And
Yeah,
Kevin Mawai played for the Jets,
Hall of Fame
and
center.
for
Yep.
years, yeah, he's a Hall of Fame center. They said for years Arizona State told every single recruit, Dave Christensen is retiring. When you get to ASU, Kevin Mawai is going to be your coach. And then when it came time to make that hiring decision, understanding that Antonio Pierce is in charge of all hiring and firing in Arizona State, because again, Herm Edwards, Magoo, complete Magoo, no idea what's going on. Doesn't even know what day it is, right? So when it
Damn.
comes time to make the decision to replace Dave Christensen with Kevin Mawai, who is another close personal friend of Herm Edwards, we're not going to make that switch we've been telling everybody was going to happen for years, right?
Yeah.
So what they did instead is they hired somebody from the NFL to come in and replace Dave Christensen. Well, that person came, spent 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks at ASU, and was
Yeah.
like, no, thank you, and took Kevin Mawai back with him to the Indianapolis Colts.
Damn.
So the program, when all this broke, blamed Kevin Mawai and said, this is definitely the dude who had to have dimed us out, as like a vengeance thing.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there was like 20 people on staff who all hated Antonio Pierce, and Dave Christensen was one of them. Dave Christensen spent 3 years telling everybody that Kevin Mawai was going to replace him. And Dave Christensen retired right around the time the dossier broke, drove straight to Salt Lake City, and hung out with his buddy Kyle Whittingham. Interesting. So it wasn't Kevin Mawai. It was a large group of people, which is how I found out before anybody, and I told you. There
Yep.
was a large group of people that hated Antonio Pierce, hated that he had multiple cell phones, hated that he went out and did a bunch of self promotion and photo shoots. They knew that he was bringing recruits in. They knew that he was effectively stealing equipment and goods and committing NCAA violations with them. They knew he had an inappropriate relationship with a very prominent player's parent who was paying for all of the visits, and Antonio Pierce was giving them that money in cash to recuperate. Shout out to Regina Jackson. And they also knew They also knew above everything else that when ASU hired Antonio Pierce, he was in deep, deep trouble for 100 cars going missing at his car dealerships. So like they knew all this and they were mad at Antonio Pierce. It was only a matter of time before you had a fracture because Herm Edwards wasn't controlling anything. And
Yeah.
in the dossier or in this NCAA report, it says every week Herm Edwards would sit down with them and say, make sure you are complying to a group of people who were all cheating under his nose at the behest of Antonio Pierce.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the yeah, and like Herm Edwards looks better and better as this like I think that he was just too trusting.
He's grandpa handing out Werthers. He wasn't to anything.
Yeah. That
He
makes
spent
sense.
the whole first 2 years of his tenure at Arizona State honoring his radio commitments. He was doing radio hits about the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. He was getting up at 4:30 a.m. to lift to jazz music. He had no understanding of the time commitment it was going to take to run a college program. Somebody was going to have to take that over, and Antonio Pierce made that decision, a business decision, we'll call it. And he was not good for business in the long run for Arizona
Well,
State. But the truth is,
it
they
worked
were on the
for
upswing because of him.
I but for Antonio Pierce it worked. He's now the head coach of the Raiders.
So, are you ever going to come out with your Antonio Pierce related conspiracy theory, or are we going to hold that one in the back pocket?
Nah, we gonna hold that one in the back pocket, fam.
All right.
We gonna
Shout out to
hold that
Coach
one
Gill.
for it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, and the cold part is, see, this is why discretion is important because there are things that me and Ralph talk about off camera, off air, that are let's take for instance. Remember on when LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson, they're on this podcast together. And LaShawn McCoy tells this story about the Kimbe Mutombo and, some chick and he was cheating on his wife and all of this stuff. That's nasty work. I don't care what podcast, that is nasty work. That is despicable, low down, dirty behavior. Especially like it's different if you're like, I'm telling this story, I live on moral high ground all the time. That ain't you. So so there are things that we talk about off air that are not for public consumption because it's nasty work like that. And so I have and I'm not talking about Arizona State in general. I'm just saying just in general that there are things as it relates to college football and all of this stuff that we keep close to the vest that we that are important because that they're notable things and that people talk about in the whispers, but these aren't things that you should be, bringing up because it's just not right. I think that there has to be some sort of like boundaries about this thing, even though people do really want to know what's in the sausage factory. Sometimes you don't want to know what's in the sausage factory. All right.
So, how do you feel about because I'm a big Derek Hagan fan. My wife had classes with him at ASU. I was a big fan of his, and
I
in
just feel bad for Derek,
as a
honestly.
college football player. Yeah, but so he this is his alma mater, right? For everybody else involved, like Antonio Pierce went to U of A. So for everybody else involved in this, it wasn't necessarily like it was for Derek Hagan, where it was like, man, if I go and I talk to the NCAA, it's going to make my university look bad. So he eats a larger penalty than everybody else. Do you respect that?
Yes, dude. Because so do you remember when Real Sports was doing the investigations on college football and whether it was Real Sports or they talk about guys getting paid and all of this stuff. So when I was in college, we got investigated by the NCAA. Me, Sammy Parker, Ontario Smith, we all had to talk to the NCAA about some alleged like jerseys getting sold and all of this stuff. And and then fast forward years later to the Real Sports thing, I get a call like, "Yo, do you want to come on? Here's how much it's gonna be." I'm like, "Listen, I got nothing to say. I know nothing. Like I have nothing to say." And I do believe that that's the way that Derek Hagan did it. Now, mind you, I didn't have anything to say. Still don't have anything to say. Will never have anything to say about things, especially things I do not know anything about. But so I can't speak on things that I have no knowledge of. But
Of
here's
course, of
the
course.
well, so so I do. Anyways, yes. So I understand what Derek Hagan is doing. I understand it, and because there's not a, I don't know how much money it would take for me to like not be able to go back to Oregon.
Well, let's call Jimmy Haslam. Find out.
Well, hey, you know what? It was funny because I saw this meme and it was talking about families and it said, uh, Ralph, because you have siblings, so and a
Mhm.
brother in particular who is
Yeah.
amazing. So it said you if you get $5,000 per week, but you can't talk to your sibling for 10 years, would you take that money? And I sent it to my sisters, and they were like, George, would you want me to take the money? That was the response back.
Can we split it? Can we split it?
And then another one said that your mom has to go to jail for a year. Or no, your mom, yeah, mom has to go to jail for a year, prison for a year, but you get $10 million. What are you doing? I was like, I'm gonna talk to my mom. My mother would walk herself in jail because and because she would know when she got
What
out in
if
that year, my mother would have $10 million,
okay,
not me.
I want you to present me with either one of those two situations right now, and I'll
Okay,
pretend like I'm
Ralph,
hearing it for the first time.
Ralph. Well, I can't with your mom because your mom passed away. So
No, but I got a stepmom. I got a step. I got a replacement. I got
okay,
I got a
okay,
stand-in.
okay, Ralph. Your stepmom has to go to jail for a year, but you get
Yes.
$10 million.
Yes. Oh, $10 million. Okay. I just said yes. Regardless.
All right,
No,
you
she's
can't
cool.
you
Shout out
can't
to
speak to your
Susie.
sibling for 10 years, but you get $5,000 per week.
That would mean that I have already fulfilled the obligation, and I will expect the amount in full in my bank account right now.
You were like, that ain't no problem. I did that before. Um,
Yeah, we already haven't talked in like 10 years. No, my family's cool. My family's cool. We're just we're just like your family. We got our stuff. But shout out to Susie. She's a nurse. She's out in South Dakota doing her thing. And if she had to spend a year in jail to cash a $10 million check, she would do that time. She is a hard worker.
yeah.
She would.
All right. Let's get to the games of the weekend, though. So, first game up, we have Michigan at Washington. And oh, actually, before even that, Ralph, can you give us the totals? Where are we at? Because am I far behind you right now?
So you entered in last week at 11-10. We gave you a bonus pick. You went 3-3, so you're 14-13 right now.
Damn. Okay.
Um, I went 2-3, which put me at 16-10. I'm a little bit concerned that I have these numbers incorrect though. Well, you were no, hold on. So I was going into the week, I was 14-7. That's 21. You
Yep.
were 11-9. You were 11-9.
Okay.
So you went 3-3. So you're 14-12.
Okay.
I am 16-10. So you were 2 games off.
Oh, okay. I'm not that bad. So the first game up that we're gonna pick, we have Michigan at Washington. Washington is a 2.5 point favorite. Ralph, I was shocked when I saw this line. I thought Michigan would be favored. After talking to Jordan Reffett on the show, talking about the 5 games and really dissecting what was going on with Washington, their quarterback Will Rogers has not thrown an interception, but they have been terrible against the run because we watched the Rutgers game. Michigan can't throw the ball. And I do not understand why people like USC in the Michigan game was in too high safeties at times. There, that makes zero sense to me. I am going to, because Alex Orji either cannot throw the ball or they refuse to throw the ball with him. If I am Washington, Ralph, I am taking Washington minus the two. Oh, sorry, plus. Not actually. Ooh, damn! That means they got to win. Sheesh. Um, I'm gonna take Washington for the upset, Ralph. I believe that I hope Jed Fish and this team is going to just play zero coverage and double dog dare Alex Orji to beat you with his arm.
Yeah, I would say that Michigan is a bad 4-1 and Washington is a good 3-2. And here's what I mean by that. Washington, when they get inside the 30, they have no idea what they're doing. None.
Yes, they've been bad. They have no problem getting
They
to the 25, 30.
exactly. And so I believe they'll figure that out. They dominated Rutgers and lost. Um, they've depended way too much on Grady Gross, and then it turned around to bite them. They should be 5-0 right now. They have been a
Yeah.
very, very good football team, and the results don't reflect it. They're kind of like the opposite of Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been a bad football team, and they're winning most of their games. Um, I will say that Michigan's win over Fresno State now looks ridiculous since UNLV just dropped 60 on Fresno
Yes.
State. Uh, they almost choked away the game against Minnesota, and an officiating mistake kept them from losing to
Yes.
Minnesota.
Yes.
And USC came back on them to take the lead. And if USC had any any ability to stop that 10-play 90-yard drive that Michigan went on to ultimately win, then they would have won that game as well. So I am not a big believer in Michigan right now. They're doing what it takes to win games. That's fine. But I believe very much that Washington is the reason Washington has lost twice, and it wasn't Rutgers. They outgained Rutgers by like 200 some yards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if they get their issues figured out, like the running a pitch play against Wazoo
Or
to win the
not,
game was
or after you
insane.
get a missed field goal, don't run on the field.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I think they'll figure it out at Washington, and I think that Michigan's warts will start to show up. So I'm gonna take Washington.
100%. Because Michigan is averaging 83 pass yards per game over the last 3 games. 83. That is behind the triple option service academies as well. So mm, just so you know. All right. Missouri at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is so when I checked, it was a 2 point line. Now it is 2.5 points. Texas A&M is Texas A&M is favored by 2.5 points. This game is in College Station. I don't trust Texas A&M, but I also trust Missouri less. Like they didn't look good versus Vanderbilt. They didn't look good versus Boston College either. And I think that obviously that they're better. That Texas A&M is better than both of those two teams. This I dropped Missouri in the Unafraid Show rankings, and yeah, I think that this is going to be a big fat L. They're first of a few, and it's time to get them up out of that even playoff conversation.
Yeah, Brady Cook is by far the best quarterback in this matchup. Missouri has the better running game. They pressure the passer better. Um, Texas A&M is great at home, but they are depending on a backup quarterback, a young quarterback,
Marcel
and Brady
Reed,
Cook
yep.
just Yeah, and Brady Cook just kind of took a dump on Kyle Field. I don't know if you saw that.
What'd he say?
He's like, our practices are louder than their games or something like that. So if Missouri's coming in with that attitude, and they have not looked as good as I'd hoped that they would look, but the defense is still even losing their DC. The defense is still legit. So,
Yeah.
and Brady Cook has yet to have that breakout game. He's only got 4 touchdown passes so far, but he's not turning the ball over. I hate picking against Texas A&M at home, but you kind of have to. If you're just
Yeah.
being logical, you kind of have to.
Yeah, I want to go with Missouri. I just don't trust them, but I trust Texas A&M even less. So, but I still am going to take Texas A&M and just cross my fingers.
Okay.
All right. Next game up, Ole Miss at South Carolina. Oh Lord, have mercy, Ralph. This line has fallen. It started at 10.5, I believe, for Texas. For Ole Miss. They've fallen to number 12, even though that they are number 22 in the Unafraid Show rankings. And South Carolina, they get their quarterback Sellers back after he got hurt in that game that they should have won against LSU. And that was another game that South Carolina just literally blew that game. They had a pick six, got called back because you hit the quarterback. That was the game sealer. And now Ole Miss, after losing to Kentucky last week, is headed out there. Ralph, give me South Carolina and give me them 9 points. Everything about it screams lock of the week for me. South Carolina.
I want to believe in Ole Miss. I think you picked them to be one of your college football playoff representatives, but they're not. Jackson Dart had the opportunity to have his Heisman moment. He didn't.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know. They're going to have to deal with a mobile quarterback either way. I don't think Lenore Sellers is playing, but Robbie Ashford, that's a big dude, and he'll run with the ball. Um, it's not an easy place to go and get a win. Give me. I'll just want to be opposite you. Give me Ole Miss.
Okay, so right now, Lenora Sellers is listed as questionable.
I think your camera went out, George.
Next game up, Miami at Cal. Ralph, this is a game that I'm looking forward to because this is essentially Pac 12 after dark, and I know it's going to get freaky. Like Miami fans think that they're just going to walk in there with a 7:30 p.m. Pacific time kick and it all be good. Listen, it took days for their equipment truck to just get across. They gonna have to. They ain't even gonna get their equipment back until the middle of next week, and they think that everything is fine, that everything is okay, that you're just gonna walk over there with a 10:30 body clock kick and nothing weird is gonna happen. They don't understand, Ralph. They don't understand. They have stepped into the algorithm, and they're favored by 10 points, and this is upset city, buddy. This game, I give me Cal, give me the plus 10. Actually, this is the lock of the day. I got a double lock.
You're in a bad neighborhood, huh?
I got a double lock the car. Yes.
So I'm with you. I'm going with Cal just on vibes. I know Cam Ward tore up this Cal defense twice when he was with Washington State, but he made a lot of mistakes in those games too.
Yep.
And one of them, he actually cost them the game. But like you said, that's the full Cam Ward experience. He is as good as it gets. But if you
Miami
can
hasn't
convince him to hold
experienced
on to the
that yet.
ball,
They have not experienced it.
yeah, nope. And on the road at Cal with College Game Day there, that might actually be the time. I, it's not going to hurt my feelings if Cam Ward and Miami stay on this tear though, because it's an awesome story, and I love Cam Ward. But I like Cal. I like Cal a lot. I like Fernando Mendoza, Miami native. Fernando Mendoza. Jaden Ott hasn't got going yet. He hasn't had his game that he needs to have this year to prove that he's the man. And I think that this is going to be the game where they do it. So give me Cal plus 10.
Ooh. Ooh. All right, I'm taking Cal plus 10. This feels like a layup to me. Wide open layup, dude. And next game up, SMU at Louisville. Our guy Tyler Shuck. Tyler, damn it. Did I
All
say it
right.
correctly?
You did. You did.
It's confusing, dude, because I don't want to mess up his name anymore. I promised I would get it right. Tyler Shuck.
You're you're shook about Shuck.
Yes, I'm shook about Shuck. And his Louisville team is 6.5 point favorites in this game. I like Louisville to win this football game. SMU has been on a tear since they switched their quarterback to Kevin Jennings. But I think this Louisville team is too much. And like they lost to Notre Dame by a touchdown, and it's because they turned the ball over. Like they didn't even allow Louisville's offense to be great. Sorry, Notre Dame's offense to be great. And SMU's offense has been completely different with the switch at quarterback. But I do believe that they come back down to earth today, buddy.
Yeah, I mean they made the switch at quarterback, but it's not like Kevin Jennings is doing much. They're running the ball. They're running the ball like crazy. They have 108 points over the last 2 weeks, and that's not necessarily a Kevin Jennings thing. So I'm a Tyler Shuck fan. Obviously, I think that Louisville is very good. They only surrendered 280 yards to Notre Dame. They should probably feel like they should have won that game.
Yes.
Louisville is awesome at home. They are just awesome at home. And a really cool thing about this game is this is the first time that Tyler Shuck has played 5 straight regular season games since 2020, since he was at Oregon. Injury kept him from doing that in 2021, 2022, and 2023 at Texas Tech. It's the reason that he's still in college football because
He's
he's been
probably
beat up a
like,
lot.
oh my God, I
Yeah.
made it over the. If he makes it out of this game healthy, he will probably feel like a relief. Like, oh my God, I made it past the Mason Dixon line.
Yeah, and it's funny because we kind of had written SMU off after looking bad against Nevada and getting beat by BYU. Well, it turns out BYU is very good.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is actually like a premier college football game. Give me the line one more time. I'm just going to do it right off
Louisville six
feelings,
and a
right?
half. Louisville favored by 6.5. Do it.
Give me
Say it.
SMU. Give me
Oh,
SMU.
what a loser!
Louisville wins by 6. Louisville wins by 6.
Oh, that could very well happen. That little hook got me hooked up too. And you guys, this is College Football Apostles presented by the Unafraid Show. I'm George Wrighster. He's Ralph Amsden. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, and share it, man, because the channel is growing, the show is growing. We thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Catch you guys not just next week, but Sunday for the recap show on college football. And then all throughout the week, all the rest of the content on college football. Make sure that you catch it on the Unafraid Show.